Welcome back, everybody. This is Dave the Gamer. Today we're going to be looking at the 3 specs that are viable for any mages. I'm going to have timestamps in my description and pinned to my comments, so if you want to jump ahead to the spec you want to know about, more than welcome to. But let's jump into this. So going over, like I said, there's 3 main specs. There's going to be your fire spec, a heavy frost spec, and then your frost specs are always going to be frost and arcane. And I'm going to go over why you'd pick each one and what type of different situations on when you would pick that. So the first one I have up right now is my fire spec. The fire spec is going to be used in later on raids, phase 4 plus. Right now we're not seeing it. We're still, ZG is just about to be released. You are going to start to see it in ZG, more in AQ, definitely in Nax. The fire spec is definitely a massive damage increase over frost because of the ignite ability, which, basically every time someone critical strikes, the target burns over 40% of that damage, and it keeps reapplying over and over, especially when all of the mages are casting fire and keep critting. Basically, that burning dot is on forever. But just to go over it, so you'd have 3 points always into the frost elemental precision, give you 6% hit on your frost and fire, which you need. Your arcane side, you're going to have 2 into the arcane, basically just help targets resistance on your spells. 3 into the arcane focus, helps a little bit more on resisting arcane spells. So like your sheep, it's going to help, that so that doesn't get resisted much. Magic absorption, that's going to, anytime you resist a spell off like another mob, you actually get some life back, mana back. And then arcane concentration, which is key, is you get 10% chance to get clear casting. So you're able to basically use one of your big abilities for free. Getting into the fire, you're always going to go to improve fireball, reduce that casting since you are going to be casting a ton of fireballs instead of frost bolts. You got 2 into the flamethrowing, just increase the range of your actual fire abilities. Like I said, ignite, you want all 5. 40%, this is massive. Like once we start seeing this, the only downside is the first person to crit and get the burn from it. Every other crit that comes from different mages keeps refreshing this essentially. So the aggro, like their threat from the original person, is just skyrocketing. So that person is going to be the highest on the DPS charts, but also the highest on threats. So they got to be careful with that. Then you go 2 points in the incinerate, basically just giving you a 4% flat on your scorch and your fire blast, which is great. 2 points in the burning soul, gives you a 70% chance so you don't lose like casting speed, whatever. When you're casting fire spells, also reduces your threat by 30%, which is excellent. The mages are amazing. They get all this damage buff, and then they also get threat reduction, plus they get hit. So mages are pretty much very well rounded overall. That's why they're one of the biggest picks as far as characters in the game. Master elementals, gonna give, when you do actually crit with a fire or with a frost, gives you 30% of your of that base spell mana back, which is excellent. So they're usually mana starved. Using frost, this is going to help their mana. 3% in, or 3 into improve scorch. So it's like someone's going to want to cast scorch. As you see, it's going to make the target invulnerable. And it's going to increase all the fire damage done to that target by 3%. Stacks up to 5 times, so a 15% debuff bonus on top of that. Critical mass is going to give you an additional 6% on your fire spells, so you got 6% crit here, and another 4% up here. This one is only on fire blast and scorch, but you got 10% if you're using those. you have 5 points into increasing your fire spells by 10%. And then finally, your combustion. So as you see, there's so many great things rating with fire spec that's going to be excellent. Right now, MC and some of the other bosses are immune to fire. That's why you don't see it coming out. But this would be a great time to start. If you do see any, plus fire gear or anything like that drop, you want to start saving that up because it's going to be used here in later phases. So if I reset this and I want to go over, I'm basically going to show you the last 2 specs all in one. So 1 if you wanted to AOE farm, and then 2 if you were raiding. So as Frost, like I said, you're always going to go 3 into elemental precision, so less resist on all of your abilities. You're going to go 5 into improve Frostbolt, reduce the casting time of it. Now, this is where, if depends on what you're actually doing. If you were AOE farming, you do not want to have any points in a frostbite because it will cast a freeze on them, which you don't want them. You want them to all be grouped up following behind you. You don't want one frozen off in the distance. So I'd go 2 into improve Nova. Like I said, if this would be more of the AOE spec version, I'd go 3 into permafrost, so it's going to give an additional speed reduction on your spells and makes it last longer. 3 into improved blizzard. Some people argue only to do 2 points, so your cone of cold could last longer. Personally, I like the improved blizzard version of this. 1 in the cold snap, which is going to reactivate all of the cooldowns. So you could use your ice block, you could use your shield, you could use cone of cold, all of your abilities. Frost Nova hits your cold snap, resets the cooldown, and you could cast them all again. So super powerful. That's why it has a 10-minute cooldown, but this is crucial. You're going to go 3 into frost channeling. That's going to reduce your mana, and it's also going to reduce your threat from frost, which is excellent. You go 2 into Arctic Reach, which is going to give you an additional 20% reach on all of your main abilities. 1 in the Ice Block. This is where I personally go 3 into Improved Cone of Cold. And this is where, depending on what you like, this varies a lot. There's a lot of points you can move around here depending on this scenario you're looking at. So if you were raiding and you wanted to stay frost, so right now I think frost is your best spec for if you wanted to PvP and farm, AOE farm. But the problem is you definitely lose, like there's other ways to manipulate this. And like if you were trying to go maximum raid damage, I'll show you that after, but let's factor this as you wanted to go straight AOE. So if I was going straight AOE, you could either go points into shatter or points into ice shards to unlock the ice barrier. I personally like to go into shatter because the way I set things up is I will, a lot of times I will cold snap, or not cold snap, I would frost nova them into a cone of cold and then an arcane explosion. So while they're frozen, I get an additional 40% crit chance on them. You could go ice shards, but I would rather the higher chance to crit than the more damage on a small chance to crit, if that makes sense. So I would finish off with my ice barrier. That's when I would swap over to here. Go 2 into the arcane, 3 in arcane focus, 5 into magic absorption, 5 into arcane concentration, and then I have 5 points left. So depends on what you're looking to do. I would always go 3 into arcane meditation, so your mana is regenerating during that 5 second, like while you're casting spells. And then you could go to, if you were more PvP focused, you could go into the improved counter spell. This is also great for dungeons if someone's about to heal and you could just silence it. If you wanted to go more damage instead, you could put, another point in the shatter, another point in the ice shards. So there's multiple different ways to go about this. I personally like to go into improved counterspell. So if I was AOE farming, this is the exact build I would go. And like I said, there's many variants to it, so let me know down in the comments, what do you do different, maybe why you do it different. Mage is my alt account, so I'm not a mass threat. I play more of my warlock, but I do use my mage a lot for grinding all my gold. The big spells being Arcane Concentration, because when you're doing massive AoE pulls, your biggest thing is you're starving mana. So before you get a ton of gear and you don't really have to worry about mana, this is going to give you your 10% chance to cast a free blizzard or something like that. In your magic absorption, depending on what you're doing, if something's casting spells on you and they're a lower level and they're resisting over and over, you're getting 5% of your mana back every time. Now, if you wanted to use the same spec, and depends on your guild. If you're in a hardcore guild, they're not going to let you come in this spec. They're going to make you go full raid spec. But every guild needs one mage to go Winter's Chill. So if they allow you to go Winter's Chill, what you could do is you could remove the 4 points from Shatter, since in a raid, nothing's going to be frozen because if 40 people are hitting it, it would break the freeze too fast. So you could remove the 4 points here, put 4 points into Winter's Chill, and then that's where, you could take 1 point out of Improved Blizzard or Improved Frost Nova, or 1 point out of Improved Blizzard to get your 5 points into Winter's Chill and keep everything else. Like I said, a casual guild won't have a problem with this. A lot of the higher end guilds, they're going to make you go 5 into ice shards and get rid of all of your permafrost and your Improved Blizzard. So depending on how your guild's set up, you can move some points around to get Winter's Chill, so they're happy, but you're still staying in AoE spec. But depends on if they're min-maxing and they want the Winter's Chill person, but they want the Winter's Chill person that does a ton of damage. So talk with your class leader on how they do it. Now, the next way to go about this, so the best spec for Frost is going to be, this is for rating version wise, always Elemental Precision, 6% hit. They are so fucking lucky. Warlock gets 0. So improved Frostbolt, you're going to go into 5 for the ice shards. You're going to go 3 into piercing ice, 2 into Arctic Reach, 3 into frost channeling, and you're done in this area. Then you're going to swap over. You're going to go 2 into Arcane there, 3 into Arcane Focus. You want 5 into the Arcane Concentration, which is very, very important. This is where you could go a couple different ways. I personally, you could go on Magic Absorption, but realistically, in a big raid scale, nothing should be hitting you. So you're not getting any full resist on spells. So it depends on that. I would rather go like 2 into Arcane Focus, 2 into Wand, and I might go 1 more into get a little bit more armor. The reason I would go Wand, if you're like Oni, all you can use is Wand. Some raids. Once you get more geared out, they don't even care. You could just DPS from the beginning. But most of the time you're going to be using your Wand, so why not get a little bit more damage out of it? You're going to go 3 into the Arcane Meditation. And this is where I would go Improved Counterspell, just for the fact that you want to be able to silence some of the raid mechanics. You can still silence them, so to instantly silence them is great. The biggest thing that you're going for here is your presence of mind. When you activate this, something less than 10 seconds becomes instant, which is amazing. It's basically a free Frostbolt or whatever you want to cast. Arcane Mind to give you your extra mana. Then you're going to go into increase your critical strike and damage here. Let's see. You're going to finish off here. Now, the one thing I thought I did mess up on, you need to take 1 point out of here to be able to get to your arcane power. So I would remove it from piercing ice. And this is where your flex points come into play. There's so many different things depending, you could go arcane explosion, which is great for some boss mechanics. It doesn't really matter, it's up to you. And then the final is arcane power. So the best spec for mages and raiding is this spec. The biggest thing, like I said, is your arcane power. They're gonna pop this on a raid fight, 30% more damage. Their spells do cost 30% more, but that's why you have arcane meditation, you have arcane mind to get more mana, you have free casting abilities. Most of the time the druid's gonna give their ability or whatever their spell's called to be able to give the mana back to the mage, and then they're getting a free spell off presence of mind. So there's so many things to ramp up arcane power. This is by far the best spec for mages for raiding. Like I said, there's some variants. You can move some things around, take some points out of piercing ice, put it over here. But as far as min-maxing, I think this is probably one of the best. You could move maybe 1 or 2 points around. Let me know your thoughts. But like I said, your top 3 builds overall, you're going to have a full frost build, which is great for AOE farming. You could take a couple points out, put it in Winter's Chill for raiding casual and staying in your frost spec. You have your fire spec, which is for later phases, going to be the best spec. And for now, this is your best raid spec. Heavily focused on all arcane with a splash of frost for your resistance and to be able to reduce your cooldowns, your reach, your mana. So let me know what you thought about this video. If you find my videos, interesting, please think about subscribing, hitting the bell so you get notifications when I do upload. I plan on uploading at least 2 videos a week. I'm going to be pushing it to 3 and 4 a week, especially during the coronavirus right now. So I'm trying to get as much content as I can out to you guys. I love to hear your feedback. But until then, guys, game on.